Joining us now is former Congressman and retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Colonel, your reaction to the death of these two Americans and everyone killed in that terror attack?
Well, good morning and blessed Good Friday to you, Dagan, and everyone there. You know, once again, we find that the enemy, or as they say, the barbarians, are not at the gate, they're within the gates. And we are not doing a good job of going in and scrubbing these lists where we find these individuals. We know that some of the individuals there in Belgium were on had a criminal background, and as you said, they were on a terrorist watch list. No different from the warnings we got about the Tsarnaev brothers here before the Boston Marathon bombing. So I think one of the things that you see happening in Europe especially is this uber political correctness and multiculturalism. They know exactly where the hotbed of this Islamic jihadist activity is in that neighborhood, and they need to go in and continue to conduct those raids to get those individuals out and find more of those safe houses.
The Wall Street Journal editorial page refers to Belgium and Brussels as ground zero for the European jihad. And these neighborhoods that you speak of, the police either can't or won't go into them. And this is a terror network within Brussels that's been developing for literally years now, at least more than 3 years, and openly recruiting people online and within the city and in underground mosques in Brussels.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one of the things that has concerned me that you just said is that the police can't or won't go into these neighborhoods. Then that means that we have made our own Western civilization, law enforcement, and our rule of the law subservient to something else, and that should not be the case. But let's take a lesson learned from what just happened in Brussels. We have a problem here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area with the Somali refugees that have been leaving and going to fight and join up with ISIS. I think you have 5 or 6 right now that are facing indictment from that area.
People talk about the lack of resources there, even here at home in some instances. For example, there's no centralized counterterrorism agency in Europe, but it's also the willingness of the political leadership to acknowledge the threat of radical Islamic terrorism and call it just that. And given what we've seen, Congressman, the last week and how the president behaved, are we fully, as a nation, acknowledging the threat to our homeland from Islamic terrorism?
Well, of course we're not, Dagan. I mean, first and foremost, we can't even say that. And if you say it, you're castigated as a xenophobe, an Islamophobe, or some other name to make you feel reticent in speaking out. Look at what happened in San Bernardino when you had neighbors that knew that there was something very suspicious going on in and around the house of Saeed Farook, but because they did not want to get accused of quote-unquote profiling, they did not say anything. This has nothing to do with profiling. This is all about trend analysis. And I was on Fox Business News speaking with Stuart Varney about a month ago when the mass migration happened, and he asked me what would I do, and I said, you cannot have these single military-age Muslim males infiltrating into these countries. And look what has happened.
So we just had Terry Turchi on. He was a former counterterrorism official with the FBI, and he said you have to be very careful to balance the need to keep an eye on these communities with the danger of radicalizing more people. He said that the FBI, the local police, have been very careful to hold meetings, to work with them, and that some of their best sources have come out of these communities, quietly, obviously. How do you balance those two needs, the need to work with them, but also make sure nothing bad is going on?
Well, I would tend to believe that these communities would not want to allow or be seen as safe havens for Islamic jihadists, that they would be willing to work with us because they would believe in the fundamental principles of liberty and freedom. And this whole thing about we cannot do anything or else we'll cause more of them to not like us or to hate us. Look, Guantanamo Bay has nothing to do with ISIS or Islamic jihadist recruiting. Going back to 1790, when Thomas Jefferson and John Adams sat in Paris with the Day of Algiers and asked them why they were attacking our merchant ships and enslaving Americans, he said, because we're commanded to do so in our holy book and by our prophet. That was 1790s.
Congressman, I want to get your take on this story. As some in the Republican Party scramble to block a possible Donald Trump nomination, there are reports that some are so against him being the nominee that they're open to supporting Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton. Your thoughts on that? And I wanted to ask you, too, if you backed anybody, endorsed anyone.
Well, I am the executive director of a 501c3 think tank here, and so I cannot do endorsements. And I'll support whoever the Republican nominee is. But to hear people, yeah, that was a Freudian slip. But to hear people say that, they will support Hillary Clinton means that they will support this failed foreign policy. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama destabilized Libya, and that has become a terrorist sanctuary. They were part of this campaign promise, an ideological agenda to completely withdraw our forces from Iraq, and now you have a sanctuary for ISIS. Look at Boko Haram all the way over to Abu Sayyaf in the Philippines. So I think there's a lot of over-the-top hyperbole to say those type of things, but there is a big concern. But I am not going to support any party's nominee that would not come out strongly against the president doing the tango while Rome is burning.
Right, Congressman, what do you do to get the party together? Because it does seem to be not broken, but certainly fracturing.
Well, you know, in the military, we just say this is a time for leadership. And I think that's what you see, not stepping forward and evidencing itself. You need to have the adult in the room that can stand up and talk about what needs to be done as far as policy solutions. And we need to get away from all the back and forth like you see what is happening right now between the Trump and the Cruz campaign.
So who do you see doing that? How does that come together if it's not going to be one of these candidates? Because certainly we don't see that. Is there someone outside that can really bring us together?
Well, I think that's what is going to have to happen. You need to find an individual that can, you know, speak to the quote-unquote GOP elite establishment, that can also speak to the grassroots and be focused on, you know, the union, and can be focused on how do we save this constitutional republic and not get down into the gutter politics. And I believe that America is a great nation. It has always produced great leaders, and somehow, some way, they'll be able to find someone that can step in and do that.
A blessed Good Friday to you, and a very happy Easter, Congressman Allen West.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
David.
so much.